The last thing I ever said to my wife was that I didn't want to be a father, and for 5 years I told myself those words had died the moment they left my mouth. They didn't. Words like that don't die, they just wait. My name is Weston Calloway, and before I tell you what happened on a Tuesday afternoon in a grocery store parking lot in Elijah, Georgia, I need you to understand who I was before that day, because the man standing in that parking lot was not the man who left 5 years earlier. He just didn't know it yet. I grew up in a trailer outside of Dahlonega, with a father who left before I could walk, and a mother who worked 2 shifts at a chicken processing plant so we could keep the lights on. I never had a father to teach me how to be one. All I had was the absence of one, and absence has a way of shaping a boy just as much as presence does. By the time I met Junie Heartwarming at a tractor pull when I was 23, I had already decided, somewhere deep and quiet, where I didn't examine it too closely, that I would never bring a child into the world to inherit the same hollow place I carried. Junie didn't know that about me. Not really. She knew I was quiet, that I worked hard, that I could fix an engine blindfolded, and that I brought her wildflowers instead of store-bought bouquets, because I thought they meant more. We got married 2 years later in her mother's backyard under a pecan tree, and for a while, we were happy in that plain, unremarkable way. That doesn't make for a good story, but makes for a good life. The trouble started slow, the way trouble usually does. It wasn't one fight, it was 100 small ones, each one a pebble, until the pebbles built a wall neither of us could see over. Junie wanted a baby. I wanted anything else. I took jobs on oil rigs in West Texas. That kept me gone 3 weeks at a time, telling myself I was providing, when really I was running from a conversation I refused to have. Honestly, the night everything broke, we were sitting at our kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg I never got around to fixing, and Junie looked at me with an expression I still see when I close my eyes. She said, "Weston, I need to know if you're ever going to want this with me." And I said the thing. I said I didn't want to be a father, that I never would, and that she needed to stop waiting on me to become someone I wasn't built to be. She didn't cry. That's the part that haunts me most. She just nodded slowly, like she'd already known the answer, and had only needed to hear it out loud to finally let herself move. 3 weeks later, I signed divorce papers at a lawyer's office in Blue Ridge, got in my truck, and drove west without looking in the rearview mirror. Not once, not even at the town limit sign I'd passed 1,000 times. I told myself I was free. Freedom, it turns out, is just loneliness, wearing a nicer coat. For 5 years, I drifted between oil fields in Texas and construction jobs in Oklahoma, picking up work wherever the money was good, and the questions were few. I didn't call anyone from home. I didn't answer when my cousin Delray tried to reach me those first few months back. When he told me much later, Junie had been trying to get word to me about something important. I assumed it was about the house or the truck loan we still shared, or lawyers. Finishing up loose ends, I let the calls go to voicemail, and then I let the voicemail box fill up. And then I got a new number entirely, and I told myself that was the responsible thing to do. Cutting ties cleanly, like a man closing a chapter instead of leaving it to rot open. The truth is, I was scared, not of Junie, of myself, of what I might become if I stayed close enough to see what my leaving had done. 5 years is a long time to build a life out of half-truths. I had a rented room above a bait shop in Amarillo, truck with 210,000 miles on it, and a silence in my chest that no amount of overtime pay ever seemed to fill. My mother passed in the 3rd year, cancer that moved fast and mean, and I drove back for the funeral, stood at the graveside in a borrowed suit, and left again before the dirt had even settled. Because Elijah had too many ghosts, and I wasn't ready to meet any of them. But grief has a way of calling you home eventually, whether you're ready or not. My mother had left me the old house on Sourwood Lane, the one she'd rented for 30 years, and finally bought outright the year before she died, and the paperwork required me to be there in person. So on a Tuesday morning in October, drove back into the mountains of North Georgia for the first time in half a decade, telling myself I would sign what needed signing, sell what needed selling, and be gone again by Friday. I stopped at the Ingalls grocery store on the edge of town because I hadn't eaten anything since a gas station biscuit at 4 that morning, and because some small, foolish part of me wanted to walk streets that remembered me before I had to face a lawyer's office full of paperwork about my mother's death. I was standing in the produce section holding a bag of apples I didn't particularly want, mostly just to have something to do with my hands, when I heard footsteps running across the linoleum, fast, the unmistakable rhythm of a child's sneakers. I turned, more out of instinct than curiosity, and a little girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old, dark, curly hair pulled into 2 uneven pigtails, wearing a purple coat 2 sizes too big, barreled straight into my legs and wrapped her small arms around my knees like she'd known me her whole life. "Daddy," she said, muffled against my jeans. "You came back." I stood there frozen, the bag of apples slipping from my hand and scattering across the floor, rolling under the vegetable display, and I did not know what to say, because there is no version of a man's life that prepares him for a stranger's child calling him daddy in a grocery store. "Sweetheart," I finally managed, crouching down slowly, "I think you might have the wrong fella." She pulled back just enough to look at my face, and something in her expression flickered, a small crack of doubt, but she didn't let go of my sleeve. Her eyes were a pale hazel, flecked with green near the center, and there was something so familiar in the shape of them that my chest went tight before my mind had caught up to why. "You look like the picture," she said, quieter now, less certain, more like a question than an accusation. "What picture, baby?" I asked, and my voice came out rougher than I intended. Before she could answer, I heard a voice call out from the end of the aisle, a voice I hadn't heard in 5 years, but would have known anywhere, in any lifetime, in any crowded room in the world. Renly Ann, where did you?" Junie stopped mid-sentence when she rounded the corner and saw us there, me kneeling on the linoleum with apples scattered around my boots, her daughter's small hand fisted in my sleeve. The color drained from her face so fast, I thought for a moment she might faint. "Right there, between the lettuce and the tomatoes, Weston," she said, and it wasn't a greeting. It was closer to a wound reopening. I stood up slowly, my knees cracked, my mind scrambling to make sense of what was standing in front of me, this child with my mother's eyes, my own stubborn chin, calling me by a word I had told a lawyer, a courtroom, and myself I never wanted to hear directed at me. "Junie," I said, "I don't understand." She looked down at Renly, who was staring up between the two of us with the particular sharpness children have, the kind that catches every adult lie before the adults realize they've told one. Junie crouched down and gently peeled the girl's fingers from my sleeve, told her to go stand by the cart, and Renly obeyed, though she kept glancing back over her shoulder every few steps, unwilling to fully let go of whatever she believed she'd found. "I was pregnant," Junie said, once Renly was out of earshot, her voice low and flat, like she'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her head, and hated every version of it. "The week you signed the papers, I found out 3 days after. I tried calling you. I tried for months. Weston, Delray tried. I even drove to that address you left on the settlement papers, and the landlord said you'd already moved on. No forwarding information. Every excuse I'd built for myself over 5 years, every justification I'd used to sleep at night, crumbled in that produce aisle like wet paper. I didn't know," I said, and even as I said it, I understood how small and useless it sounded. "I know you didn't," she said, and there was no cruelty in it, which somehow made it worse. "I stopped trying to make, I had a little girl to raise, and I couldn't keep waiting on a man who'd already told me exactly who he was." I looked over at Renly, standing by the shopping cart in her purple coat, one hand gripping the metal bar, watching us with an intensity that seemed too old for her small face, and something inside me that had been asleep for 5 years, something I had actively worked to keep asleep, opened its eyes for the first time. Where did she get a picture of me? I asked, because it was the only question my mind could hold on to, a small, safe question in the middle of an earthquake. Junie's jaw tightened. Your mother, she said. She used to bring Renly by sometimes. After your father, after everything your mama decided, she wasn't going to let another Calloway child grow up without knowing where they came from. She kept a photograph of you on her mantle, the one from your high school graduation. Renly used to ask about the man in the picture. My mother had known. My mother had held my daughter, had let her sit on that same porch swing I'd sat on as a boy, had told her stories about a father who was somewhere out west, chasing a life that never filled him up. And I had stood at her graveside 3 years ago, with no idea any of it existed. I don't remember deciding to sit down on the edge of the produce display, but I remember Junie's hand finding my shoulder, not out of forgiveness, not yet, but out of something older than anger, some shared grief neither of us had asked for. I'm not asking you to stay, she said quietly. I learned a long time ago not to ask you for anything you weren't already offering. I looked up at her, and then past her, at Renly, who was watching us with those pale hazel eyes, waiting, the way children wait, without pretense, for the adults around them to decide what kind of world they were going to live in. I want to know her, I said, and my voice cracked in a way I hadn't allowed it to crack in longer than I could remember. I know I don't deserve the chance. I know 5 years doesn't just undo itself because I happened to walk into a grocery store on the right Tuesday. But I want to know her, Junie, however you'll let me. Junie studied my face for a long moment, the way she used to study a bad piece of machinery, trying to decide if it was worth the labor of fixing or better left for scrap. Whatever she found, that I'll never fully know, but she nodded once, slow. She's smart, Junie said, smarter than either of us. She's going to ask you why you left. Someday, maybe not today, but someday, and you're going to owe her the truth, the whole truth. Not the version that makes you easier to forgive. I know, I said. I'll give her that. I promise you, I'll give her that. We didn't fix 5 years in a grocery store aisle. I want to be honest about that, because anything else would be a lie. And I've told enough of those to last several lifetimes. It took months of slow Saturday visits, of learning how to braid hair from tutorial videos in a truck stop parking lot, of sitting outside Renly's kindergarten class in my truck just to see her walk out the door safe, before Junie trusted me with more than an afternoon at a time. It took longer still before Renly stopped flinching, just slightly, every time I said goodbye, like some small animal. Part of her was bracing for me to disappear again, the way the man in the photograph had disappeared for so long. But I stayed. That's the part of the story that matters most, I think. Not that I found her, not even that she found me, in that unlikely, impossible way. That still doesn't make sense. No matter how many times Junie and I have turned it over trying to explain it to ourselves. What matters is that I stayed, this time. Through the hard parts, through the birthday parties where I was still the newcomer, through the school recitals where other fathers had 5 years of practice I didn't have, through the nights Renly cried and asked why I hadn't come sooner, and I had no answer. That didn't sound like an excuse. I sold my mother's house eventually, but I didn't leave Elijah. I took a job at a machine shop off Highway 52. Ordinary work, steady work, the kind of work that lets a man be home every night instead of 3 states away. I rented a small house 2 streets over from Junie's, close enough that Renly could ride her bike between our porches, far enough that Junie and I could learn, slowly, carefully, what kind of friendship, if any, could be salvaged from what we'd broken. Last spring, Renly turned 6. She asked me, out of nowhere, while we were fishing off the dock at Carter's Lake, why I had left before she was born. I set my rod down, and I told her the truth, the whole truth, the way I'd promised her mother I would. I told her about my own father, about the fear that had lived in me longer than I'd lived in any house, about the hollow place I'd been so afraid of passing down, that I tried outrun the very thing that could have healed it. She listened the way only children can, without judgment, only curiosity. And when I finished, she didn't say anything for a long while. She just reached over and put her small hand in mine, the same way she had that day in the grocery store. And she said, "I'm glad you came back, Daddy. I have spent 5 years running from a word. I have spent every day since that Tuesday in October trying to become worthy of it."
This story reminds us that even the most broken relationship can find their way together. If you love stories like this, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next one.